The sun hung low over the Serengeti, spilling molten gold across the grasslands. Elias gripped the steering wheel tighter as his patrol jeep bounced over the uneven dirt track. Radio static crackled in the background, a faint distress signal from somewhere deep within the reserve. He followed the broken signal until he spotted it. A lion. But not just any lion. A young male, collapsed under a spindly acacia tree, ribs heaving, eyes half closed. Alone, dying. Elias's training screamed caution. A weakened lion was still a lion. Desperate, dangerous. But his heart overrode his fear. He grabbed the emergency kit and approached slowly, boots sinking into the dust. The lion lifted his head weakly, meeting Elias's gaze. There was no roar, no growl, just a broken, pleading breath. "Easy, boy," Elias murmured, voice low and steady. Step by careful step, he closed the distance. Flies buzzed around open wounds on the lion's side, likely the result of a brutal fight. Elias knelt beside him, ignoring the pounding of his heart, and began treating the injuries. He poured clean water over the torn flesh, bandaged the deepest gashes as best he could. The lion didn't fight. He simply leaned into the touch, as if some ancient part of him understood that this human wasn't a threat, but a lifeline. Hours blurred together. Elias stayed until the lion, whom he would later name Malik, was strong enough to lift his head fully. When Malik finally tried to rise, Elias stumbled back to give him space. Malik swayed on trembling legs, then did something Elias would never forget. He pressed his massive forehead gently against Elias's chest. A thank you, a bond, sealed without words, and somewhere in the tall grass, unseen eyes watched, silent, waiting. The Serengeti wind shifted. Elias felt it before he heard anything, a subtle prickle along the back of his neck. He turned slowly, scanning the wavering grass. At first, he saw nothing. Then, between the folds of the landscape, shapes. Golden bodies blending perfectly into the earth, eyes glinting like molten coins in the fading light. The pride. They had been watching the entire time. Elias's mouth went dry. The leader stood at the front, a lioness larger and more powerful than any he had ever seen. Her coat was dusty but magnificent, and her stare was not hostile, only measured. Zara, the queen of this corner of the Serengeti, and Malik's mother. Elias froze, every muscle poised to run if he had to. But Zara didn't lunge, didn't roar. Instead, she took a few slow steps forward, her body language neither submissive nor aggressive, something in between. Curiosity, caution, recognition. Malik, still shaky, gave a weak chuff, a low, breathy sound of greeting. Zara's ears flicked. She studied Elias with the careful calculation of a ruler deciding whether a stranger belonged within her walls. Seconds dragged into minutes. Every fiber of Elias's body screamed to move, to step back, to retreat to the safety of his jeep. But he didn't. He stayed kneeling in the dust, hands open at his sides. No fear, no challenge, just presence. And in the wild, sometimes that was the only language that mattered. Finally, Zara lowered her massive head in a slow, deliberate motion. A silent nod, a decision made, and Elias knew. He had been seen and somehow accepted. The days that followed blurred into a strange, silent rhythm. Every morning, Elias returned to the same spot under the acacia tree. He brought fresh water, chunks of antelope meat left over from patrol pickups, bandages soaked in antiseptic. Malik grew stronger with each visit. At first, he only lifted his head to acknowledge Elias. Then he began crawling short distances. By the third sunrise, Malik stood fully on his paws, wobbly but alive. Always nearby, hidden among the golden grass, the pride watched. Zara, the young males, the playful wide-eyed cubs, they never approached, but they never left. It was clear. Every move Elias made was being weighed, measured, judged. One afternoon, as Elias poured water into a shallow stone depression for Malik, he heard it, the soft crunch of paws against earth. He looked up. A young lioness, barely more than a cub herself, had broken from the group. She crept closer, ears flattened slightly, tail twitching. Elias stayed completely still, breathing shallow, heart hammering against his ribs. She circled him once, keeping a wary eye locked on his every move. Then, daringly, she leaned forward and sniffed the hem of his pant leg. Elias didn't flinch. He simply smiled, a small, reverent thing. The lioness huffed softly, almost like a sigh, then trotted back to the safety of her pride. From her vantage point, Zara gave a low, approving chuff. The message was clear. You pass. That night, under a sky littered with stars, Elias sat beside Malik in the dirt, feeling the invisible threads weaving between them all. Trust, earned, not demanded, and far more powerful than any spoken word. The day Malik walked on his own, the wind seemed to shift. It carried the scent of rain and renewal, whispering across the tall grasses. Elias knelt nearby, watching without interfering. Malik stretched, shook out his battered body, and gave a low, rumbling chuff toward the horizon. Across the field, Zara stood tall, regal, her amber eyes unblinking. For a moment, Malik hesitated, caught between two worlds. The human who had healed him, the pride who had birthed him. Elias felt a lump rise in his throat. He knew what had to happen. You belong with them, Malik, he whispered, almost to himself. As if sensing the permission, Malik turned. He limped forward, stronger now, toward Zara. The other lions shifted, their bodies tense, but Zara gave a soft grunt and stepped forward to meet him. She sniffed him once, twice. Then, with a slow and deliberate move, she brushed her massive head against his. Accepted, welcomed. The pride closed ranks around Malik, enveloping him like a lost brother, finally returned. Elias watched, a bittersweet ache blooming in his chest. He should have felt abandoned. He didn't. Because as the lions gathered, something unexpected happened. Zara turned back toward Elias. She walked a few paces closer, close enough that he could see the faint scars on her muzzle, the strength in her gaze, the history they now shared. She lowered her head, briefly, gracefully, a bow, a thank you. No roar, no ceremony, just a simple, eternal acknowledgement. You are one of us. And as the pride disappeared into the glowing Serengeti twilight, Elias stayed kneeling in the dirt, smiling, whole. Word spread faster than wildfire across the villages bordering the Serengeti. Stories whispered over evening fires, tales retold in open-air markets, rumors shared among rangers on dusty outposts. the man who touched the lions, the ranger who was accepted into the wild. Elias didn't seek the attention. He still woke before sunrise, laced his boots, and made his quiet patrols across the endless plains. But wherever he went now, he felt it, the shift. Elephants lingered longer in his presence. Giraffes lowered their towering heads as he passed. And sometimes, if he moved slowly and breathed with the wind, he would catch sight of Zara's pride, lounging near watering holes or resting under acacia trees, always watching, always remembering. Tourists who came hoping to catch a glimpse of the famous lions sometimes reported strange sightings. A solitary man walking the edges of the pride. No fences, no fear. Some swore they saw a lioness bow her head when he approached. Some said the cubs chased his shadow across the grass, as if he were one of their own. Children started drawing Elias in their notebooks, not with a gun or a truck, but with a staff and a lion by his side. And deep within the Serengeti, beyond the reach of camera flashes and headlines, something more enduring took root. A truth older than nations, stronger than blood. Respect the wild, and sometimes the wild respects you back. And Elias, with sun-scarred skin and a heart stitched together by kindness, became not just a ranger. He became part of the landscape itself. Years passed. The sun still burned over the Serengeti. The rains still carved silver rivers through the dust. And life, wild and merciless and beautiful, continued. Elias grew older. His stride slowed, his hair grayed, but his eyes never lost that glint. The one that understood the language of silence, the one that knew respect could be louder than any roar. One evening, under a sky bruised purple with dusk, Elias stood on a familiar hilltop. Below him, spread out like gold coins scattered across a velvet cloth, Zara's pride moved through the tall grass. Malik, now a full-grown male with a thick mane and deep commanding chuffs, led his siblings. Elias smiled. He didn't call out. He didn't wave. He simply stood there, hands resting loosely on his old wooden staff, and waited. As if on cue, Malik lifted his great head and caught his scent on the breeze. Their eyes met across the distance. Recognition, respect, home. Malik rumbled a low greeting, so deep it seemed to shake the earth itself. Zara, older now, but still regal, padded forward slowly, and once again, as she had so many seasons ago, she bowed her head, not out of submission, out of memory, out of trust forged not by dominance or fear, but by one man's choice to risk everything for something wordless and wild. Elias closed his eyes briefly, letting the moment settle into his bones. He knew he wouldn't have forever. But this would outlive him. In every paw print, in every gust of the savanna wind, in every story whispered under the stars, the bond remained, unbroken, eternal.
If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Subscribe for more inspiring stories.